Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. The Magonomia episode for this month will be moved forward to this week because I have a two-parter planned for when it would usually run. Today we're going to look at Alchemy in the works of Geoffrey Chaucer. One of the most popular books in Elizabethan England is The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. It's essentially a 14th century anthology with a frame narrative where a group of pilgrims amuse each other by telling stories as they travel. Late in the series, we get the tale we'll examine today, where a priest's servant, a canon's yeoman, explains how he and his master attempt to create gold alchemically, how the science of alchemy is addictive, and how they are driven to poverty and fraud to pursue it. He also gives the story of a more successful confidence trick by someone in the same profession, but that will wait for next month's episode. By the 16th century, people interested in the subtle science, like your player characters, had become convinced that Chaucer was one of its masters. What he writes in the story is enough to demonstrate that he knows some of the basic processes and has been trained in the obfuscating language used by alchemists to describe the great work. He's also known to have written a partial treatise on the construction and use of an astrolabe. It was written for a child, so it's in plain contemporary English. His role as Comptroller of the Port of London gave him all kinds of opportunities to hide the wealth created by the great art and to arrange the importation of needed tools and reagents. His family is, from an English perspective, effectively extinct. His daughter married into the de la Pole family, and his grandsons were some of the final claimants of the Yorkist line of the Plantagenets. He has a few descendants whose ancestors escaped to France during the Tudor Ascension and married well there. He is not, however, succeeded by any known practitioner. No one is carrying on his work in the reign. There was no trace of a laboratory in his London residences, but a cache of his materials may exist somewhere. Biographical research indicates he became a deputy forester for the king toward the end of his life, and had a remote hunting lodge under his care. This might have proven suitable as a site for a laboratory. Our reader is Joshua Young from LibriVox, but the version he's recorded removes the yeoman's prologue. Essentially, the dialogue in it is as follows. When the pilgrims take to the road after staying in an inn for a night, two more people hurry up and ask to join their company. The host, the leader of the pilgrims, asks who they are, and the yeoman says his master is a wonderfully wise man. The host says he's welcome if he can tell a merry tale or two. The yeoman answers that his lord's done many interesting things, and so will have tales to tell. And then the host asks if he's a clerk, by which they mean a priest, and the yeoman says he's better than that, he's a canon, and that he's so clever he could pave the road to Canterbury with silver and with gold. The host then asks why, if that's true, he's dressed as shabbily as he is, and the yeoman says that when men are too wise they lose their wits, because their research has become vices, and his master is troubled by just such an ailment. The host then asks where they live, and the yeoman confirms it is in alleyways, and the host asks why the yeoman is so discoloured. He's later said to look leaden. And the yeoman says it's from his work at the great fires. He then says he and his lord chiefly live by getting people to give them gold, under the fancy that they can multiply it alchemically. But although they sincerely try, they always fail. The canon then rides up and quarrels with his servant for talking too much. And spurs away in embarrassment. The yeoman, suddenly free of his employer, sees no reason not to tell of all his secrets, and how his own addiction to the art has ruined him. And now over to the reading, with interjections from me. Note, we won't make it as far as the actual tale in this episode, as the yeoman's introductory remarks about his art are lengthy and interesting to those of us playing Magonomia alchemists.
With this canon I dwelt have 7 year, and of science am I near the near. All that I had I have lost thereby, and God wot, so have many more than I. Where I was wont to be right fresh and gay of clothing, and of other good array, now may I wear on hose upon mine head.
To explain that, he's now so poor that he uses an old stocking as a cap.
And where my colour was both fresh and red, now is it wan, and of a leaden hue. Whoso it useth, sore shall he it rue. And of my swink yet bleared is mine eye. Lo, what advantage is to multiply?
Multiplication in this sense is the alchemical practice of taking a small amount of gold and creating more gold from it.
That sliding science hath me made so bare, that I have...
Good here means property. By sliding science he means slippery and deceitful.
no good, where that ever I fare, and yet I am indebted so thereby of gold, that I have borrowed truly, that, while I live, I shall it quite never. Let any man beware by me for ever. What manner man that casteth him thereto, if he continue, I hold his thrift y-do.
Quite here means to complete or to be clear of, or to quit. Idu means ended. I hold his thrift ended.
So help me God, thereby shall he not win, but empty his purse, and make his wits thin. And when he, through his madness and folly, hath lost his own good through juparty, then he exciteth other men thereto, to lose their good, as he himself hath do.
Juparty here isn't the word jeopardy. It's a card game where the odds between the two players are equal.
For unto shrews joy it is and ease, to have their fellows in pain and disease. Thus was I ones learned of a clerk. Of that no charge I will speak of our work.
Shrews here means wicked or vicious people. Disease means suffering, lack of ease, rather than sickness.
When we be there as we shall exercise our elvish craft, we seem wonder-wise, our terms be so...
Right, these are odd. When he says the craft is elvish, he means it's weird and magical, not literally taught by elves. Clergical means learned in this case. Quaint means old and unusual, but that doesn't have the sort of nostalgic feeling of goodness that we give to it today.
Clergial and quaint. I blow the fire till that mine heart faint. Why should I tell in each proportion of things which that we work upon, as on 5 or 6 ounces may well be of silver or some other quantity? And busy me to tell you the names, as orpiment, burt bones, iron squams, that into powder ground be full small, and in an earthen pot how put is all, and salt ye put in, and also pepper, before these powders that I speak of here, and well ye cover with a lamp of glass.
Orpiment is yellow arsenic sulfide. Squams are scales, hence Lovecraft's love of the word squamous. The lamp of glass here is a mistake. Walter Skeet's edition says it should say lamb, L-A-M-M, which means plate.
And of much other thing, which that there was. And of the pots and glasses in gluttning, that of the air might passen out no thing. And of the easy fire and smart also, which that was made.
Englutening is sealing with clay. Well, mud, arguably. Easy and smart are antonyms here. One means slow and the other means rapid.
And of the care and woe that we had in our matters subliming, and in amalgaming and calcining of quicksilver, called mercury crude.
Subliming here means something slightly different to what it means in modern chemistry. It means to turn something into a vapour. Amalgamating is mixing. Calcinating is to heat without melting to create a change by oxidation. And mercury is called crude here, not because it's a crude material, but because that is what crude people call it.
For all our sleights we cannot conclude our orpiment and sublimed mercury, our ground litharge, eke on the porphyry.
Litharge is white lead, which was a lot commoner in Elizabethan England than in earlier times, as it was used in cosmetics. Porphyry is a purple stone prized in the ancient world as being suitable for emperors due to its colour. This is why people who were born in the palace of the Emperor of Constantinople were called porphyrogenitos, born of the purple.
Of each of these of ounces a certain not helpeth us, our labour is in vain, nor neither our spirit's ascension, nor our matters that lie all fixed adown, may in our working nothing us avail, for lost is all our labour and travail, and all the cost, a 20 devil way, is lost also which we upon it lay. There's also full many another thing that is unto our craft appertaining, though I by order them not rehearse can, because that I am a lewd man. Yet will I tell them as they come to mind, although I cannot see them in their kind.
Lewd here means unlearned, rather than sexually lewd.
As sal, armoniac, verdigris, borax, and sundry vessels made of earth and glass, our urinals and our descennaries, phials and crosslets and sublimatories, cucurbites and alembics eke, and other such, dear enough a leak, it needeth not for to rehearse them all.
Joshua had a bit of trouble there. He may not be an Ars Magica player. Okay, let's work through what those things are. Sal ammoniac is ammonium chloride. It was used to clear the dross out of metals being refined. It's also edible, but ammonium carbonate has taken its place in baking. Verdigris is the blue-green rust that forms on copper alloys. It's made by putting sheets of copper over boiling vats of vinegar. But in England, I think they just sealed the whole lot in pots and then put it in dung heaps because dung heaps were fascinating to alchemists and produced their own heat. French alchemists used the vinegar from wine production for the same process. I know it's a fungicide and a pigment, and I want to say it's used to make a particularly potent acid, but the details escape me. I've made a heap of it, verdigris, not the acid, when showing children how to light LEDs with penny batteries. Borax is borax. Our urinals and descendaries. Urine, because it's golden, got a lot of interest from alchemists, and hateful as it may sound, one of them really did strike the jackpot here. The first new cool element discovered by these people was phosphorus, which glows on its own and is spooky, and it was found in urine, allowed to rot down and concentrate. A descensionary is a retort that distills via descent. A crosslet is a crucible. It's also what you'd call a crucette if you like French cookware. A subliminatory is used to sublimate, which is to say vaporize. An alembic is a still, of which the cucurbit is a part, and it's the part that contains the materials to be heated. Yes, the name does mean cucumber. Modern alembics work a bit differently to the ones which use the cucurbit. Basically, in a modern still, you heat the flask, and the stuff to be distilled hits the lid and runs off down a cooling pipe or tube to be collected in an unlidded collection vessel. In a cucurbit alembic, the end of the tube from the cucurbit pokes into the lidded collection vessel. Dear enough a leak means cheaper than a leak, a long Welsh oniony thing.
Waters rubifying and bull's gall, arsenic, sal armoniac, and brimstone, and herbs could I tell eke many a one, as agrimoine, valerian, and lunary, and other such, if that me list to tarry.
Now, here is where we see why people thought Chaucer really knew his stuff. Rubified water was water that had been infused with elemental fire as part of the process of containing the 5 essences so that you could combine them. This is aqua spiritualis rubia, which is quite important, hence the fancy name, which means red spirit water. Sal ammoniac, I discussed before, but forgot to mention, contains a place name. It will come up again in another bit of alchemy in the line. Brimstone is sulphur. It has infernal associations. Also, it's yellow and it's a rock that burns, so clearly it's got something to do with cooking stuff to make gold. As to herbs, the first one's what we now call agrimony, or agronomy. Don't give me a hard time about my accent. You can't pronounce our herbs either. The last one is what we now call moonwort. Basically, in folklore, it's good for pretty much everything, providing it has been gathered ritually by the light of the full moon.
Our lamps burning both night and day, to bring about our craft, if that we may. Our furnace eke of calcination, and of water's albification, unslaked lime, chalk, and glaire of any, powders diverse, ashes, dung, piss, and clay, seared poquettes, saltpetre, and vitriol, and divers fires made of wood and coal, salt tartar, alkali, salt preparate, and combust matters, and coagulate, clay made with horse and man's hair, and oil of tartar, alum, glass, barm, wort, argoil, rosselgar, and other matters imbibing.
You can see why people who were interested in the subtle art thought that Chaucer knew his onions. To the average person, none of this made any sense at all. Let's go through it. Calcination is heating stuff to make it change. Albification means to make something white. And the things he uses later are for whitening, but I'm not really sure what the point of it is. Glaire is a bookbinding glue that's made from egg whites. Well, I'm a librarian. Presumably it has some other use. I know you can crack eggs into coffee to take the grinds out, so something similar, but mystical and subtle. Saltpeter is a niter. I've covered it in an earlier episode of the podcast. Vitriol is sulfuric acid. Seared pockets are, sadly, not modern pockets. There's some argument here, but Walter Skeat's edition suggests that it's a diminutive of the word poke, which means sack or bag, and seared means coated in wax. Wax is cera in Latin. So basically, little bags for alchemist stuff. We will be pinching these for Magonomia, clearly. Salt of tartary is potash. I'm most familiar with it from baking and glasswork. It forms naturally in wine barrels. It was considered interesting by alchemists. Is it a mineral or a vegetable? Alkali is also potash, although originally it was made by burning shrubs, so clearly I'm missing something. The K in al-Kali is where potassium gets its chemical symbol from. I have no idea what salt preparate is. It may just be refined common salt. Sal tartar, or spirits of wine, as it was also called, works as a flux. That is, when you add it to metals, it makes them more malleable. The ancient alchemists thought this was a great thing. Oil of tartar is salt of tartar that's been left in a cellar for a while. It was used to treat facial blemishes and warts. Alum here is potassium alum, which is to say it's yet another type of potash. Balm is the yeast froth that comes from the top of alcoholic fermentation. You can also use it to make balm bread. Wort is the stuff that gets mashed out of grain before fermenting begins. Argoil is potter's clay. Rosalgar is a red arsenic sulfide that was used to make the white colour in fireworks before aluminium became available. It's also used as a rat poison in the rain and is called sandarak locally.
And eke of our matters incorporing, and of our silver citrination, our cementing and fermentation, our ingots, tests, and many things mo.
Citrination is when you make a metal more yellow so that it's closer to gold. Ingots here mean the moulds, not the bars that come out of the moulds.
I will tell you, as was me taught also, the 4 spirits, and the bodies 7, by order, as oft I heard my lord them neven. The first spirit quicksilver called is, the second orpiment, the third he was sal ammoniac, and the fourth brimstone. The bodies 7 eke, lo them here anon. Sol gold is, and Luna silver we thrip. Mars iron, Mercury quicksilver we clip, Saturnus lead, and Jupiter is tin, and Venus copper by my father's kin.
So he's given some of the alchemical code words away here, which means that a well-read person from the rain discovering the notebook of an alchemist may, instead of thinking that it is gibberish, be able to recognize that it is an alchemical text, even if they can't understand what's going on in that text.
This cursed craft whoso will exercise, he shall no good have that met him suffice. For all the good he spendeth thereabout, he lose shall, thereof have I no doubt. Whoso that list to utter his folly, let him come forth and learn to multiply. And every man that hath aught in his coffer, let him appear and wax a philosopher, whilsconce that craft is so light to lear. Nay, nay, God wot, all be he monk or frere, priest or canon, or any other wight, though he sit at his book both day and night, in learning of this elvish nice lore, all is in vain, and pretty much more.
White just means a body here. Nice used to be a negative word. It means stupid in this case. Where he says all is in vain and pardy much more, pardy is a mild curse word that came across with the Normans and has weakened over time. It's by God, perdayu.
Is to learn a lewd man this subtlety. Fie, speak not thereof, for it will not be. And con he letterer, or con he none, as in effect he shall it find all one. For both two, by my salvation, concluden in multiplication. Alike well, when they have all y do, this is to say, they fail both two. Yet forgot I to make rehearsal of waters corrosive, and of limile, and of bodies mollification, and also of their induration, oils, ablutions, metal fusible, to tell in all would pass in any Bible.
Limail here are metal shavings. Mollification means to soften, induration means to harden. Bible, in this sense, pass in any Bible, just means book, so it contains more than any book.
That where is wherefore, as for the best, of all these names now will I me rest. For, as I trow, I have you told enough to raise a fiend, all look he ne'er so rough. Ah, nay, let be, the philosopher's stone, elixir called. We seek fast each one, for had we him, then were we sicker enow. And unto God of heaven I make a vow, for all our craft, when we have all y do, and all our sleight, he will not come us to.
Literally, he means that elixir is the name of the philosopher's stone. It's not a more general term to him for all the things that he makes and puts in a potion bottle. I will also warn you that soon he will tell you that he gets wood when he does alchemy, and that means at this stage that he is mad.
He hath he made us spend much good, for sorrow of which almost we waxed wood, but that good hope creeped in our heart, supposing ever, though we sore smart, to be relieved by him afterward. Such supposing and hope is sharp and hard. I warn you well, it is to seeken ever. That future temps hath made men dissever, in trust thereof, from all that ever they had. Yet of that art they cannot wax sad, for unto them it is bitter sweet. So seemeth it, for had they but a sheet, which that they might wrap them in at night, and a brat to walk in by daylight, they would them sell, and spin it on this craft.
A brat is a cloak. His point is that if they have any possessions at all, a sheet, any clothing, they will sell them to continue to participate in the attempt at multiplication.
They cannot stint until no thing be laughed. And evermore, wherever that they gon, men may them know by smell of brimstone, for all the world they stinken as a goat. Their savour is so ramish and so hot, that though a man a mile from them be, the savour will infect him, trust me. Lo thus by smelling and threadbare array, if that men list, this folk they know may. And if a man will ask them privily, why they be clothed so unthriftily, they right anon will run out in his ear, and sayn, if that they espied were, men would them slay, because of their science. Lo, thus these folk betrayen innocence.
Remember, he's talking about himself here. He's saying that because people who participate in alchemy smell terrible and wear shabby clothing, people think they're participating in dark magic.
Pass over this, I go my tale unto. Ere that the pot be on the fire y do, of metals, with a certain quantity, my lord them tempers, and no man but he. Now he is gone, I dare say boldly, for as men say, he can do craftily. Algate, I wot well he hath such a name, and yet full oft he runneth into blame. And know ye how? Full oft it happeneth so, the pot to breaks, and farewell! All is go. These metals be of so great violence, our walls may not make them resistance. But if they were wrought of lime and stone, they pierce so.
To explain, but if here means unless. Unless the walls are made of lime and stone, the crucible will break.
That through the wall they gone, and some of them sink down into the ground. Thus have we lost by times many a pound. And some are scattered all the floor about, some leap into the roof without doubt. Though that the fiend not in our sight him show, I trow that he be with us, that shrew, in hell, where that he is lord and sire. Is there no more woe, rancor, nor ire? When that our pot is broke, as I have said, every man chides, and holds him evil apaid. Some said it was long on the fire making, some said nay, it was on the blowing. Then was I feared, for that was mine office. Straw, quoth the third, ye be lewd and nice. It was not tempered, as it ought to be. Nay, quoth the fourth, stent and hearken me, because our fire was not made of beech. That is the cause, and other none, so that I cannot tell whereon it was along.
When he says that the fire was not of beech, they literally mean the tree. It has mystical association.
But well I wot great strife in us among. What, quoth my lord, there is no more to doen. Of these perils I will beware of soon. I am right sicker that the pot was crazed.
Crazed means cracked here, and this is the earlier meaning of crazed.
Be as be may, be ye no thing amazed. As usage is, let the sweep the floor as swith. Pluck up your hearts, and be glad and blithe. The mullock on a heap he sweeped was, and on the floor he cast a canvas.
Mullock is rubbish. Oddly, in Australia, mining waste used to be called mullock, so I thought it was more specific than general waste, but it's not. It's just a coincidence that they are both going for gold. Also, on the floor he's casting a canvas, a sheet of the material we now make sails out of. It's just strangely spelled in the original.
And all this mullock in a sieve he throw, and sifted, and he picked many a throw. Party, quoth one, somewhat of our metal, yet is there here, though that we have not all. And though this thing mishapped hath as now, another time it may well be enow. We must put our good in adventure.
Adventure here means risk.
A merchant, party, may not endure. Trust me well, in his prosperity. Sometimes his good is drenched in the sea, and sometimes comes it safe unto land. Peace, quoth my lord, the next time I will fand, to bring our craft all in another plight.
Fand means to try. Plight here means a condition, not necessarily a bad ending.
And but I do, sirs, let me have the white. There was default in somewhat, well I wot. Another said the fire was over hot, but be it hot or cold, I dare say this, that we conclude nevermore amiss. We fail alway of that which we would have, and in our madness evermore we rave. And when we be together every one, every man seemeth a Solomon. But all thing, which that shineth as the gold, it is not gold, as I have heard it told.
Chaucer gets in his aphorism here. Shakespeare pinches it. Tolkien pinches it.
Nor every apple that is fair at eye, it is not good, whatso men clap or cry. Right so, lo, fareth it among us. He that the wisest seemeth by Jesus is most fool, when it cometh to the and he that seemeth truest is a thief. That shall ye know, ere that I from you wend, by that I of my tale have made an end.
And lo, here, half an hour in, plus the preface, which we had cut off, and it's another 10 minutes, he finally starts his story about a confidence trickster, which we'll have for you next month. Your saga may vary.